Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. So we're going to go ahead and get started. We're going to be talking about then, now, and looking forward to the future. So we're super glad to have all of y'all back. As you're probably aware, this is going to be our last webinar for 2020. We're going to be taking a little bit of a break over the November and December holidays, and then we're going to be coming back with more exciting conversation and time to bond in 2021. So we do encourage you to stay connected for that. Now, we do have a poll up right now that we would like to invite everyone to participate in. You'll notice that poll in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, I believe, and there's 3 questions that are open answer that we'd like you to just go ahead and share your information, share your thoughts on the answers to those questions. So please do that. Those are the same 3 questions that we're going to be asking our panelists to share information in as well. But we're going to invite you onto the panel through that today. Now, there is another way that you can also participate in today's discussion, and that's through the question and answers. That's also probably in the right-hand corner of your bottom right-hand corner of your screen. It might be collapsed, and you can click on that little caret and just expand it, and you can send in a question to the panel, and we will bring that up in the conversation where appropriate, or we may respond back directly in there, so you can look for responses to show up there as well. But we do want to encourage you to participate, and I want to thank Matt Wolf for going ahead and sending in his first question. His question was if there's going to be chat available. We won't have chat open, but we will have question and answers open so that you can communicate with the panelists and that we can bring your conversation in. So we encourage you to participate in both the poll and the Q&A to do that. If this is your very first webinar Wednesday, this is a great discussion. It's going to be about 90 minutes in length, and we're just going to have a good community discussion. We're going to talk about some best practices, some great learnings that the panelists have had as well as you might have had. And we're going to take your questions and answers. We might have members of the press or the public viewing, and we welcome them. We would just encourage any members of the press to reach out to any panelists that you might want to be quoting or using in any of your publication for assistance with properly representing them. And if this is your first webinar Wednesday, we talk about a lot of different topics, and this is actually our 23rd discussion this year. What you see on the screen right now is a list of all of those different discussions that we have had. We put this up for a couple reasons. It's a great opportunity to look back and see all of the amazing things that we've chatted about over these last few months. But also to let you know that all of these are available as recordings that you can go back and look at. Maybe you attended one of these and there was something exciting that came up there that you want to go revisit. Or maybe you didn't get to attend one of these and you'd really love to understand a little bit more on profitability in the post-COVID world. So we invite you to go back and take a look at those and see what other discussions have happened.
Hey, Matthew, I'm just going to jump in. It doesn't look to me like the slide progressed.
Oh, okay. Well, let's see. What slide are we looking at right now? Does it say www.gatewayticketing.com? Well, let's try this again. Looks like the share stopped at some point. There we go. Hi, everybody. It's Randy. Let's go back and, I'm not sure if we didn't see the slides progress or not, but let me make sure that everybody can see what we were just talking about. If you're interested in watching any of the recordings, just visit www.gatewayticketing.com/community. And from there, you can see all these great people and their contributions to our Webinar Wednesday program. We've had so many awesome people join us. I love looking at these slides of all their faces. You can go back and see any of the content. And here's the list that we were showing. It's our 23rd show, as Matthew was saying. But if you wanted to go all the way back, like he was saying, to one of these sessions, go ahead, go to our community, and you'll be able to find them there. So, Greg, big thumbs up if you're able to see my screen progressing properly now. Awesome. I apologize for that little technical difficulty at the very beginning of our session today. So, Matthew, why don't you Well, let's go back. I'll go back forward now. We've had, I don't know exactly what the count is.
Over 65 different presenters and unique voices that we've heard from. Over close to 2,000 individual folks that have come and joined us to listen and to participate in these discussions over this last 23 sessions. So it's really exciting stuff.
No, that is really great. And we can't thank you all enough for sharing the couch, so to speak, and joining us here and being part of our discussion. So to everyone who's attended, we thank you so much. For all of our attendees, we've had many of you attend 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 sessions, and your comments and your questions are invaluable. And today is a real opportunity to join in on that conversation. If at any point you want to even raise your hand and say, hey, I want to join in right now, let us know, and we'll do our best to make you a panelist as well. And if you wanted to share some insight with the community, please do that. I'm joined today by a really great friend of my partner here, Matthew Hohenstein. He's our destinations principal at Gateway Ticketing and just one of the greatest humans on the planet. Matthew's done a great job. He's been super helpful for me personally on these journeys. If you have any questions and you want to reach out to either myself or Matthew, our emails are right here. I'm Randy Jocelyn. I'm a wildlife and conservation principal. Both Matthew and I have been in this industry since, we were kids, basically. We started in this industry as kids, and we're hoping to stay big old kids in this industry. We love it so much. And speaking about some other kids in this industry, I'm going to let each of you guys say hello. We'll do something slightly different today. Just introduce yourselves for 10 or 15 seconds. Say hello, who you are. Some of you guys have been here many times before, but we'll start with you, Josh. Fire it up, buddy.
All right, how you doing, Randy? Thanks so much for having me on, for having me back. Glad to be here. I can't believe this is the 23rd webinar, but I'm sure you guys are somewhat relieved. There will probably be a big exhale at the end of this one for all the amazing hard work that you guys have done over the last, was it 6 months, 7 months? I've lost count already. So,
well, I know Donna, it wasn't a joke, but Donna joined us on April Fool's Day, April 1st. So I know it at least went to April. I think a few before that as well.
Yeah.
Josh, thanks for having me. Now, Josh, you are the founder of Backlooper, and you also work alongside this guy, Matt Heller. You guys are partners as well. Matt, why don't you say hello?
Hello, I am happy to be Josh's PR specialist. So anything Josh does, I just retweet and repost. So that's my job.
Well, Matt, you do a great job. You've been very involved with IAPA this week, as Josh has been, and a real good mentor to many of us. So thank you for joining us today.
Absolutely.
Donna, like I mentioned, we can all go back and watch your recording from April 1st. I even have a screenshot somewhere of this. But Donna, you've joined us a few times to share your insights, and you're just been super amazing throughout this experience with some great insight, from your dual location. So just want to give you a chance to say hello to everyone.
Everybody, yeah, I actually looked back at that April 1st presentation, and it's hard to believe it was that long ago. It kind of felt like April Fool's Day for sure. So I don't think we thought we'd be where we're at right now.
Well, I'm going to save the question, but at some point we're going to say this question. I'm going to say, hey, what would April 1st, what would the advice you'd give to April 1st, Donna, about where the journey's been? And, it is interesting to be able to go back and watch some of these recordings. And I think one of the things that struck me was so many of those initial insights that everyone had, they were spot on. Everybody was correct, spot on. They knew these things that we had to do. I think that we're all a little surprised that we're still having to refine them and continue to do them and almost prepare for another level of extremes of those. So, but we'll save that question for you in a bit. But thanks for joining us today. Heather, how are you?
Hi guys, I'm great. We're making it, man. We're doing it. We're getting through. I remember being on one of your first webinars for reopening strategies. We were one of the first aquariums to open in the country that we're aware of, and we've been making it thanks to everybody's sharing of information. I think that's what's so cool about this is we learn from each other. Nobody had the recipe for this. Nobody had all the answers. So I just relied on all of you guys to get through. So I'm really grateful that we're still here.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think hi, buddy. Everyone, I'm saying there's these extremes. My kids went to school, and now they've all come back home and are doing school again at home. It's a lot of change. And Heather, you were talking about like not having the recipe or the blueprint, but one of the things that was great is that you just shared everything. You just said, here's all the information. Go for it. We saw that out of the Huggle Zoo as well, which is your neighbor just up the road. Because the two locations in Utah were able to open, we started to see that real collaborative spirit of sharing. And I think that's one of the big aha moments. It's that this community we always knew was special, but in terms of sharing and partnering together and working together, it's been pretty amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Ben, thank you for joining us today. Ben is the CEO of Avius. Go ahead and say hello, Ben. Thank you for being here. So I know we've talked a lot about you and it's great to have you here.
No worries. I've been a bit of a lurker, to be honest. I've listened in on at least half of those sessions. I know that I can recap and capture them. So firstly, thank you for hosting and thank you for all the effort that goes in behind the scenes. For those that don't know me, I'm the guy that can be seen wearing crazy jackets around the IAPA show floor and various events. But yeah, Avius, we provide customer feedback solutions. So those smiley face, sad face devices you see outside many restaurants and attractions around the world, that's me. So looking forward to sort of giving a supplier's input as opposed to an attraction's input to what 2020 has delivered.
It's funny because like in 2019, pushing the buttons and then we started to do this and then now we're like waving near it and seeing gestures, right? So we're capturing the data, but we're just having to do things differently. And it's been interesting to see even things as, like just pressing a smiley face button or a slightly unhappy face button, how we're having to adapt to new ways. Yep. Having suppliers join us and the manufacturing supplier portion, it's really an important part of our industry because we've all worked together here at Gateway Ticketing. We love sharing, and although Matthew, myself, and others on our team are operators, we want to share that information. Francine is going to hopefully be joining us this evening. If you have never met Francine, she's amazing. My slides are advancing very, very slowly. So I will probably tell you that we'll be transitioning to Bill's desktop shortly. So Bill, just kind of get ready. Just having a little technical difficulties, probably because there's 5 kids in school upstairs. Francine is the VP of Whitewater. She's an amazing person, comes out of the industry as an operator and serves on a ton of boards. So she's a real powerhouse as a leader in our industry. So we're excited to have her. Greg, Senior Manager of Marketing here at Gateway. We're going to ask him some questions. He's behind the beautiful foliage in the background. And Bill D'Angelo, who's our technical resource, is going to help us as well. So we're going to do an industry update, and I'm going to pass it over to you, Matthew. And then we are going to swap out our presenters. So Bill's going to run the slide deck now. You might see a little hiccup in the background as this happens.
Yeah. So one of the things that I ran across in actually yesterday's news was this article from Inc. It really isn't related to the attractions industry, but I thought as we're thinking back on this past year and we're looking forward to this new year, it was something that we might want to go ahead and give some thought to as well. And that is specifically Google coming out with kind of a 3-word plan to kind of help avoid burnout. And those 3 words are no meeting weeks. So I've been in the industry for a while, and I remember like no meeting Thursdays and things like that. And one of the things that I think for those that are working remotely a lot, is that we're finding that maybe because we can't be physically seeing everybody so much, we end up having a lot more virtual meetings. I will tell you that one of the things that is the killer of my productivity are lots of meetings during a day, because I can't find time when I'm going to sit and do the things that I need to do. So this was an interesting thing where basically one of the things Google was doing is during that last week of the year, kind of declaring it a no meeting week, which makes a lot of sense, because a lot of times that's when a lot of folks are taking vacation. But then also looking to do that at other points in the year to kind of just say, hey, here's a good time if you do need to take PTO or vacation, or if you really need to kind of hunker down and get working on stuff, kind of having that commitment and organization-wide of leveraging the staff and being productive in other ways during that time. The next thing I just wanted to talk about were other incremental programs that we're seeing attractions come up with that are really geared around the fact that they have limited capacity. And this one came out of Universal Orlando Resort. And specifically, it's their Universal's Holiday Tour, where they took kind of their VIP tour type of experience. They took a lot of their holiday offerings that are being delivered in much different ways this year than they have before, and kind of packaged together ways to do kind of a tour around those that allowed a small group of folks to kind of go through each one of those experiences. That really is a way for them to generate some incremental revenue, as well as to realize that these aren't things that they can do in mass, right? We're not in a situation where we could take large groups around and do things like this. And so kind of finding that balance of doing that, and an interesting way to bring in some incremental revenue as well. And Randy, I think you had run across one. Was it at Six Flags?
Yeah, Six Flags, same thing. I think one of the things that I really love about this is like our passion and our feeling for actually being at a place that's a special place. You know, this is a program, Six Flags Holiday in the Park. So they've done this at Six Flags New England, but I think people are starting to really understand that these attractions, to me, they're like when you go visit an amazing, like the Grand Canyon, or when you're going sightseeing. Just being in the presence of these locations is really awe-inspiring. And you might not need the rides and the attractions to be running. And here at Six Flags New England, the coasters are not going to be running. It's going to be a one-way traffic through the park. You're going to stroll along, have s'mores, have your hot chocolate, and enjoy some festival music. And that's it. And that's the experience you're purchasing. I believe it's $19.99 for adults. And I would go in a heartbeat. You know, I would take my family to something like this if it was available to me within, an hour, 90-minute drive, just because we need these types of experience. And quite honestly, I don't need to ride all the rides and attractions to have a special, amazing time. So I think we're going to start to see more and more places doing this. We've been talking about this for a while. You sell the food and the beverage, but I really do like these types of programs as they're popping up more and more. So I think it's something really special. So anyway, it made me think about some of those profound. Yeah, go to the next slide. This is exactly what we wanted to talk about like as we reflect on 2020. Never would I have thought that walking through an attraction could be so special. Walking through an attraction without the rides running could be something special. But we've heard time and time again that, the taste of Calico at Knott's Berry Farm, the Buena Vista, these new ways of doing things. So we asked you what your thoughts were, and we wanted you to share the most profound and significant, surprising learning since the outbreak. And Matthew, you've done a great job. It looks like we've got a great amount of responses here. I'm gonna let's share through some of these from our audience here. So let's go ahead and advance. Sydney, this is my first time reading these. There are many paths to get to the same goal. Be open to new ways of doing business. That's great. Nikki from Akron Zoological, there's a lot of people who feel they don't have to mask up or take steps to help protect others. So that is sad. That's something that we've been seeing a lot of. In fact, we're seeing this more and more, that we're just having to enforce these rules, and we're doing something. And I wanted to take a moment on this one is there's and by the way, everybody else who's joining me as a panelist, jump on in here and we could all talk about it. But it is interesting about this. When we first started, we kind of had this concept of, do we all want to be the mask police? Do our attractions want to, do we feel that we have to do this? And I think that was a real balance. Matt Heller, what were your thoughts on that early on? I remember you and I actually had a conversation from an HR standpoint about this concept of masking up and being the mask police and this balance. And I think, Heather, you even mentioned it too at the Living Planet as you reopened. So Matt, what are your thoughts on that in terms of what we've done differently to control this aspect of being the so-called mask police, yes or no?
Well, thanks, Randy. I think one of the big things is not considering yourself the mask police, but just asking people to do, the thing that you're asking them to do because it's safe for everybody, right? And one of the big things that I said, kind of early on is let's start a confrontation. Let's start a conversation, not a confrontation. And so I think when you have people that are, not putting their mask on, and some of this came from our own rules, like you could wear your mask sometimes, you didn't have to wear it at other times, and we were kind of putting our team members in some pretty precarious situations because our guests were now feeling empowered to not wear them sometimes, and they had to wear them other times. So to start a conversation is just to start talking to people and then kind of kindly remind them during that conversation to wear their mask and why it's important and that kind of thing. But I think it goes back to just, they're there to have a good time. You're there to provide a good time. So let's not add more confrontation to it, knowing that if you don't do it, you're going to hear from other people, right? You're going to hear, well, you said we had to wear a mask, but these folks over here aren't. So that's going to create another sense of conflict. So that's kind of my stance and what I've been kind of talking to people about.
Yeah, before Heather jumps in, Sherry, who's joining us as an attendee from the Brevard Zoo, I mean, Sherry, your words are perfect. This forces us to be fluid and flexible and ready to change in the blink of an eye. And it really just means that we just have to be ready for the change because we don't know what the rules are going to be. We don't know what our guests are going to say or need or want or desire with the masks, and would they kind of take it upon themselves to self-police? Heather, how's it been for you as one of those first places that reopened? And probably shifting policies with the masks? How's that been going for you?
We have a new favorite word, which is pivot, which some of you probably remember that Old Friends episode where they're trying to take a sofa up the stairs and they're like, pivot! So we have a really good culture of being able to pivot anyway, and I'm super, super grateful for that because we were tested. Things were changing within the same day, as you guys all know. And, when you've got 175 staff, you've got 200 volunteers, you've got guests ready to come in, the communication and the training is super important. So I think being on Twitter, following the governor all the time and being ready to pivot. So we used our local and our state and obviously the federal guidelines to guide everything that we did. And we felt that was a very comfortable position for us because we could always point to that guideline that just came out. So we made a lot of signs and then we remade them and then we remade them again and a lot of staff training. But everybody handled it pretty well overall. I'd rather not do it all over again, though. Once was good for me.
Yeah, and Donna, let's jump to you. Let's just ask you that question. Donna, as you reflect on the year, let's go back to April 1st. We were all here together. We reflect on the close of 2020. What would your answer to this question be? What's the most profound or significant learning that you've had at Northwest Trek and Point Defiance?
So I put the question out to some of my staff, and it kind of landed in the same place that I started out with when I knew I was going to be on this presentation today. And it really was, I think, the resiliency, the flexibility of our visitors and our staff. As Heather just said, we were getting changes literally minute by minute, either from the state or the health department, and we're trying to put all of those into play and make a safe experience. And one of the things Dana that works at Point Defiance Zoo said was just that how happy people were just to be on site, to be able to have that experience with us. And it didn't matter that all the animals weren't out or that every location wasn't open. It was the fact that we had provided them an avenue to do anything beyond staying home with their kids. And one of the promotions we put into place, and I'll give Derek Chapin, who used to work for us, the credit for this. Like everybody else, we had to cancel our summer camp program. So we offered the people that had reserved those the opportunity to either get a full refund or donate some or all or part of their registration to go towards providing tickets to first responders in our community. We ended up getting $38,000 worth of donations from this group. And, that was a lot of tickets to go to the two major health facilities within our community. And that's a significant amount of money. So I think we were all blown away, that given how difficult this situation is, how giving and how people were open to being different. And, you have the whole mask thing. And one of the things we did early on that was that we opened up a time at every Monday at the end of the day that for people that had a legitimate exemption could come into the zoo without a mask. And so that kind of took the pressure off the rest of the day. And we know there were people that came in at that time that had no medical exemption, but at least we were able to point them to a time that could say, we understand that you, for whatever reason, you can't wear a mask. This is what we're going to do for you. And it really took all of that anxiety away from the day-to-day visit and us not being the mask police. And I think those two kind of come together in that it was really just, having a conversation with our visitors and figuring out a way to balance it all out.
Yeah, that's really good information. I think learning from each other, and we've done a lot of that at Gateway, is just learning from each other about what we're going to do next, and and listen to each other, and has been great. And being accommodating. Greg and I were just talking about some of the changes that places are making, and I think that sometimes throughout this, one of the lessons I've seen is that you might have had a bunch of rules and regulations that were in place or that you put in place that served whatever purpose. And as you realize that you've got less people maybe on your team around, you might not be able to control whatever those regulations were. And it's a little teeny one, but I'm a Dollywood season pass member, and they incentivize you by purchasing early to bring friends. And one of the things that was, to me, was very arbitrary, and it's not the same type of program that you're mentioning there with mask and no mask, but they have this, it was very arbitrary that you had to come on certain dates and bring a friend. Well, those days were miserable. And now as they've looked at this program, they said, we still want you to bring friends, but we're lifting these little windows. So that seems to help out quite a bit. So something like that, those changes that we might need to make at our attraction, it's important to look at that. Hey, Josh, why don't you just jump in? And by the way, any of our panelists can jump in as necessary. But Josh, what's your most profound, significant, surprising learning since the outbreak?
Yeah, I think one of the most profound or most significant learnings is really understanding that our guests do want to visit, right? They want to come back. And back in the very beginning when everything was shut down, the optimists were saying there's going to be this pent up demand. And I know that that's maybe not been the case for every single attraction throughout the country, throughout the world, but I think that we've seen that when facilities reopened, that there were people who were there and they were ready and willing to visit again. But also, tying that in with the large majority of guests are there to hopefully have a positive experience similar that they had previously and complying with all guidelines. But we also know too that a subset of that population was visiting because they did not take the pandemic maybe as seriously as others. And I know a few people kind of mentioned a similar significant learning as well, that some people weren't willing to to comply or didn't think that they needed to wear a mask. And so that's kind of this little catch-22 that we have, that we want people to visit, but there are certain people that want to visit because they didn't think that we needed to be shut down in the first place. So it's really about walking that line and making sure we're able to welcome as many people as possible, while at the same time ensuring that everyone is committed to keeping each other safe.
Yeah, and there's so many good responses that we've had, and it's really, really interesting to see, some of these. This is what Joe was attending, Joseph Harris's most profound learning is that so many people think this is a hoax, but Peggy, knowing that this is a time where we all can get together and survive anything and get through this. And there's been such hopeful information in the last week or so about a vaccine. And Dolly Parton, going back to Dollywood, I read the most amazing story that Dolly donated $1 million to COVID research here at Vanderbilt University. And it's just, I love stories like that have been happening. This being able to spend more time with your family, which has been a very positive byproduct, even though sometimes they can squeeze all the internet out of you. But being and understanding, that family comes first, and having a strong family is really great. So Manisha, thanks for your thoughts here. Ben, I'm going to jump it back to you. What are your most impactful learnings that you want to share with us?
So I guess with my work hat on, ignoring anything sort of friends and family based, obviously being the CEO of a feedback management company that relies on touch screens for probably 95% of our feedback, we were certainly a little bit panicked and taken aback on what might be the impact for us. But something that I'm at liberty to share with you guys is we've got our devices across 102 restrooms in Atlanta Airport. Obviously, as soon as COVID hit, their passenger numbers dropped by about 95%, but on certain days it was as high as 99% year-on-year comparisons. So we assumed that of the restrooms that were available, people would not be wanting to touch a physical device, especially with everything that's going on around COVID. We actually saw the opposite. So to throw some numbers at you guys, on average, we get about 3% of passengers that go through the airport on a daily basis leaving feedback in the restrooms. So whether they've visited the restaurant or not, that's our sort of headline stat, it's a pretty significant number that we get to. Through the worst day of COVID, where we had the lowest amount of surveys, that 3% had jumped up to near 15% of passengers. So it was something I didn't believe, and we reran the numbers and we got sources from TSA and other passenger numbers. But it told us that, and I really challenged the results. We looked back at the airport operation, and they deliberately reacted to COVID with laying on extra custodians and making sure that those custodians were far more present and visual in the restrooms. And they were physically wiping down the screen literally every few minutes. They were keeping it clean. They'd installed hand sanitizer next to the devices. So it was completely against intuition. But through this, they've actually seen more people wanting to leave the positive feedback, and their scores did track upwards as a direct result of what measures they're put in. So don't always assume what your guests are going to behave like, and in this case, what passengers are going to behave like. Because it may not always be true. But that was something that was completely against what we would have theorized around. Wow,
early on, I remember we had the Extreme Action Park team on here, and they were doing the same thing. They were huge on the cleaning, right? Like they were overtly cleaning and sharing that this is what they're doing, and they're being overly clean. And I like that. I really appreciate that. In Tennessee, we've been able to go to places and visit and eat, and I really do. I think that matters quite a lot, to be able to do that. Hey, Greg, I want to jump to you. you could kind of this marketing discussion. I want to keep that going. You're a marketing manager here at Gateway. What are your thoughts on the most surprising changes this year?
Well, what everyone's mentioned so far has been really impactful, and I guess from a marketing angle, I think we've really changed how we communicate with our guests. It was always a priority, right, to communicate with our guests, or from the operator side to communicate with our customers or people who might use what we sell. It was always a priority, but it really became important and essential this year to clearly, concisely, and often communicate with our guests. And I think that's something that we're going to take into the future, whether there's another pandemic or we just have a new promotion. Things like getting the message out there via every channel possible, how you're cleaning the venue, how you're maintaining social distancing or mask wearing, if that's something that was, government mandated where you are, and making sure that that's literally everywhere. Every email you send out, every social media post. We saw so many attractions creating a video that they could show of just someone just on their iPhone walking through the venue, showing all the measures that were being taken to make sure that your guests feel like it's safe to return. The other thing is, when they were buying a ticket, everyone had to make sure they communicated on every page of that process that it was limited capacity. These were the new changes. There were new parking rules. There were new entrance rules. At your attraction, maybe all the exhibits or all the rides weren't open because you had limited staff or just because of limited capacity rules. So I think the way we communicate really, the importance of communicating clearly really got amplified, and the importance of communicating often also got amplified.
Yeah, and it's interesting, no matter what we do and how, even if we do an over effort, we do a great job, we over communicate. I don't actually love what Jim wrote here, but Jim's thoughts are very profound. Jim's the president of Premier Rides, is a legend in our industry, but even after everything we've done, everything that we do to showcase safety, that many members of the public at large are still resistant maybe to coming in and visiting. And that there's a lot of pull, there's a lot of story being told about the safety. I always go back to the fact that, I have not seen any articles about an attraction or a theme park being the source of any kind of outbreak at all. And in fact, now we're starting to really understand more and more that, these very small gatherings of folks is really where this, COVID is being spread. And so for many of us, we can safely go to these places. We can safely enjoy them. And I think our industry's done a great job working together to really define new rules and new ways of being safe and family and friendly for everyone. Francine, you told me you were going to join us a little late. I'm going to jump to you, so hopefully your audio is working. I want to make sure that you had an opportunity to say hello. So I already introduced you already, Francine, but you're the executive VP. Well, there you are. I got you on camera. I think we've known each other for a really long time, and I think your thoughts as a manufacturer supplier, but as an operator, are truly profound. So why don't you share with us say hello and then share with us your thoughts on this.
Yeah, well, thanks, and I'm glad that I'm here. I had other calls that were scheduled, but thank you so much, Randy. I listened to Matt Heller's session during the IAPA virtual education program, and he was talking about being human and being kind. So I'm going to go in that direction for a little bit. A couple of things that were really surprising. I shouldn't say surprising to me. I should have known these already, but I discovered them again during all of this. One of those is that, as humans, we really look at the basic necessities have always been water, food, shelter, clothing, but we also value freedom. And many of us in many parts of the world value freedom as one of those same basic needs. And it wasn't apparent to me just how much people have shifted in their thought process where leisure and entertainment has become a basic need. And it wasn't more apparent until COVID hit and all of that opportunity for leisure and entertainment went away. So I'm challenging Jim Shea's comment just a little bit, and I'll get to that in a second. He's not incorrect, but I think that it was just so apparent, and we see it because there's some people who think that you took away my freedom to enjoy leisure, my freedom to enjoy entertainment, and they are so upset about it to the point where they're pushing back. On the other hand, there's so many people that are so sad, and you see how as humans we're different and we can't have that leisure, we can't have that entertainment, and we can't have that human interaction. And you see all the stories of kind of how there's a lot of depression and so on. So really it kind of told me a lot that our business of leisure and entertainment is a basic need. And there is something that comes with being able to go into a happy place and enjoy oneself, and how much it really does affect us as humans. So I think that was the one that was kind of really a discovery for me. Yes, I've always been in this business, and I spent my whole career, and I've always been part of it because I wanted to make people happy and I wanted to serve others. But I don't think I realized until now just how important that is to those people that we serve. So when we get ready to open again, when we get ready to have those parks open, and as manufacturers and suppliers, how we take care of our customers that also have to be able to deliver on that, we need to be doing it with joy. Everything needs to be about joy. Whether we're conducting business together, it should be joyful. It should be as much involved with humanity as possible. Can we do it on video? Can we do it in person safely? I'm a big fan of, hey, if you can get people to come to Disney safely, you can get people to an expo safely. But we have to be able to facilitate that and get people back into that joy of being together. The other one I heard, it was, I can't remember who said it, but they said, good marriages got better and bad marriages got worse. Well, I take that another step and say that good relationships got better, bad relationships got worse. I think it made a lot of us think about who's the most important in our world and who's the most important in what we do. And I'll tell you, I spend a lot of time traveling all over the world and seeing my industry friends. I truly miss my friends. I miss the people that I get to see. And that's a real part of the joy of working in the business. And so that was another kind of discovery. And I'll kind of leave that concept, going back to what Jim had said, that people were resistant to coming to the parks despite all of the safety features they put in. Now, I worked on that committee that wrote the reopening guidelines, and we were talking about all the aspects and really wanted to say, let's do it right, but let's do it pragmatically. One thing I did discover is that it's true. People in the, I would say the lower end of the economic spectrum are spending what they have. And so if they have $600 in their pocket because the government's given it to them, they will spend it, and they will do it in ways that make them happy. People on the other end of the economic spectrum tend to spend based on how they feel. And so how do they feel? Do they feel depressed, and are they going to go do something that's joyful? How do they feel about their security? How do they feel about the world and their outlook going forward? They will spend in that fashion. So I think we have to, as people in this business, in the business of fun, in the business of joy, in the business of leisure and entertainment, look at both of those groups. We have to think about both of those groups and say, how do we bring that joy to both and understand how they spend? So those are my discoveries. Maybe nothing that everybody didn't already know, but I would just say that I'm grateful that I could see the light at the end of this tunnel, and I think it's going to be a joyful one.
I love the word joy in this regard, and I love thinking about tomorrow, and I think that's the inspiration I got out of IAPA and the sessions I attended, and listening about Give Kids the World and all that they do. I think it is important that from a perspective standpoint, we have a good understanding of why is it that we do what we do, right? And Lisa has a question about, is the need for entertainment leisure a basic need or a trained need? And I think that's a great question for all of us to think about. Like for me and the word joy to me, having entertainment and leisure and exploring and going to these places that my kid just lights up at is, I would say it's not necessarily trained. It's just something that it's a place to go that has special memories. So I think a lot of it is about memories. It's about what brings me joy and sharing that joy with others. And that's why I wanted to say at the very beginning what I said. I don't need to ride all the rides and attractions. A stroll down Main Street or Francine, I got to tell you, even at a water park, I love water parks. We talk about water parks. But being just around the water parks and the water slides, I could sit in a cabana. I heard today that people are just getting cabanas in places that you never would have thought about cabanas. Because you could sit me in a cabana and I could just watch some other people enjoy that time. And that brings me great joy. So those are my thoughts about that. I want to open that to everybody. I do want to say, Jason, I want to throw in Jason's a quote here about his learning. One of Jason's learning from the Pro Football Hall of Fame is how much I can do with little money. You know, there is a lot of fun and entertainment and attractions. A stroll down the boardwalk and getting a frozen banana and a corn dog does a lot for me personally, you know, maybe just as much as riding a ride. So I'll throw that out to everybody and get your thoughts on these comments. Who wants to jump in? Josh, you were smiling. You look like you're about to add on to that.
I'm just thinking of you walking down the boardwalk with a corn dog in one hand and a frozen banana in the other, and that, you know, there's just nothing happier in life than that, right? But yeah, no, I mean, and, you know, Francine, I love what you said of everything as far as, you know, the things that we need in life, and that, you know, where does our industry fall into that? And, you know, the first time I heard the word non-essential back in March, I felt a little triggered by it. And, you know, I kept thinking of just, you know, our industry. Yeah, people do this because they want to. Yeah, there's other things in life that we do need, that food, water, shelter, that, you know, life-sustaining necessities. But now it really kind of entered into a question of where do we fit in with all this? And I think by taking away, whether it's that leisure or, Francine, like you said, that freedom, and now people say, well, now I want it more because I can't have it, you know, for this finite period of time, and being able to wanting to get back to it to now say, hey, this actually is essential for life fulfillment. And, you know, we could talk all day about, you know, how we bring families together and just provide joy and that happiness to people.
Randy, I'm going to jump in here. So to get perhaps educational or philosophical, if you will, what is it? It's Maslow's or somebody's hierarchy of needs would say that, you know, at the beginning you need food and shelter, like Josh just mentioned, but at the very top of that one is once you've actually gotten yourself to a point of comfort where you do have those absolutely essential needs fulfilled, then you get to creative endeavors. And his philosophy is we're not talking about that's not non-essential. That's just the tip of the essential pyramid. So it's creative endeavors. And I think what we can start talking about is having your attraction opened or closed essential. I don't know, and I'm not going to pass judgment in either way. But whether you are open or closed, your attraction is still open because you can still provide online content, virtual content, digital content, email engagement, any sort of digital engagement. So I guess it begs the question, you know, what are you doing to still keep your attraction open even if the doors are closed?
It's a really great point. And I think also one of the things I'd like to do is move to kind of our second question that we had posed, and that was, what technology has had the greatest impact on your attraction as you've navigated the COVID crisis? I'll answer that first just from my perspective. I have seen an a surprising reliance on the websites and web stores that we have never seen before. And obviously that was time ticketing, trying to plan out who's coming. But I think it has really driven making sure we have the right information, easily accessible. Are you open? Because I don't know what is or what isn't. I used to always assume everything was open, right? And then how do I get tickets and what do I need to do? And Heather, maybe I could turn it to you and kind of get your thoughts on what at the aquarium what you've found.
At the aquarium we were planning to launch time ticketing when we opened our new 7-acre expansion, which we were also in the throes of construction when the pandemic hit. So thankfully we'd already done some dry runs with Gateway for time ticketing during our spring break, which is our busiest time of the year last year. So thank God we did that because it would have been so much harder if we hadn't had those conversations with our frontline staff, if we had to go from 0 to 60 like I know a lot of people did. So we were really lucky to already be thinking like that for events and for our sellout days. So that was great. The other thing is we went to digital adventures. We moved all of our summer camps online, and we did that also for this upcoming fall break, and we're going to do that for Christmas time. So we relied on Zoom. We did all the meetings on GoToMeeting. Everybody bought subscriptions, and we used text and cell, and we just increased communication. But the coolest thing is we were able to not just focus on our local audience for summer camps anymore. We had people out of the country that were in the same room with our summer campers here in Utah, which was just incredibly, what a rich experience for them. So those are some of the things that we utilized tech-wise. Thank goodness we were thinking about time.
That's really great. One of the things I wanted to move to is just a couple other comments that had come in from folks that had participated. One was from Cindy at the North Carolina Aquarium, is from a technology standpoint, operating leaner and smarter. Then Nikki was kind of making sure that the team has the right skill set. So, and that the point of sale system that they're using had the right tools to them. So she had found that they had some limited capabilities there, and so they really had to kind of innovate and think through other ways to solve that.
Yeah, and I also, Leanne echoed that too. Leanne of the Discovery Queue, and being able to, this kind of builds on to what Heather was saying about making sure that you could use Zoom and Teams and all these extra tools to conduct our education mission. So let's see, Donna, I'm going to jump to you. What would you say? There's so many. I'm trying to figure out how I can best get through all of these great comments because they're really great. Some of them are just really good one-liners, using all the virtual platforms and time ticketing and point of sale, Facebook Live. It really, really is that we were leveraging so many different components of technology. And as a personal note, before I jump to Donna, mobile devices have been huge for me. Obviously, API connections, Gateway Ticketing has a product. We work with Patrick over here at CityPass using Connect and being able to use this technology better to link city passes into the ticketing systems. But somebody, I think, said one of the ones that I was most amazed at, just the internet itself. What I mean to say here is, the internet has been so nasty this year as well, but it's been such a good source of being able to do amazing things. And this was me this morning attending IAPA. Josh, you're in my shot. Ben, you're in my shot. There was a Teams meeting going on within my company. You can see my daughter Sunshine. She had a little cough and a stuffy nose, so the school sent her home, which means I can't send her back to school for 2 weeks. But so she's over here doing her morning. She's on her morning meetings. But could you imagine what this would have been like? Just, I'm not even going to say 10 years ago, 5 years ago, we wouldn't have been able to do these things. So it is pretty amazing. Donna, I want to jump to you as we talk a little bit more about technology. What technology has had the greatest impact for you at Point Defiance?
I'm just going to throw a comment about Zoom out there, because looking back at April 1st, one of my comments was about how suddenly people had discovered Zoom, and one of the stats I gave then was that 2.5 million people were using Zoom on a daily basis back on April 1st. I checked today, that number is 300 million per day are on Zoom across the country. And I mean, that's just mind-boggling, and it's been a game changer from working from home. I had been home for quite a couple of years, actually, because of my husband being ill, and I wasn't looped into a lot of meetings because it wasn't something that we were using. And now, literally, your entire day can be jumping from one Zoom meeting to another. So when you first sent me these questions, I have to tell you the first thing that came into my mind was that I was so happy I had the point-of-sale system that I have. Being able to leverage all the things within gateway ticketing made, a lot of the things we were already using, we just expanded how we use them, but certainly time ticketing and now using that into the future. I saw one of the comments earlier from one of the participants about how they think that's going to be the standard moving forward, and I would agree. I think I guarantee, at least for our Zoo Lights event, it probably is going to be the way that we're going to manage that event in the future. Allowing our staff to be socially distant and using our hand scanners through a plexiglass shield so that they're not getting next to the customer and they're working, and all of those pieces that are integrated together that help us deal with that customer at the front gate, or as Heather was also saying about the virtual programs, we're doing them and we have classes and kids all over the world participating in our virtual classrooms now, which that wasn't the case before. It was just, it was an underutilized program and really tied to the local community than it was more internationally. So it's pretty incredible just kind of using the things that we had access to before, but to the extreme and to the extent that we're using them now.
Yeah, certainly online bookings and reservations, and we have a lot of posts about that. Manisha mentions it. Mark at Park Vault is talking about, online bookings as well, and the changes. And it's an interesting thing because, is it here to stay? I heard a question that was posed to someone from the Smithsonian. Is it here to stay? And I think what's most amazing about it is that when you start transitioning everything to online, you just get so much more data. Being a data guy, and Ben, you're going to jump in there too. Being a data guy, it gives us so much more. It's such a better place to start. That if we know when the guest is going to be coming, if we know that they're probably not going to be, if we can get that sale and get them in, I think that's a huge component. But we really have to use that data, and it's not just Gateway. Don, I know you. Thanks for the shout out and about how Gateway and we would love to help everybody out. We had a comment as well from Ben. Thanks, Ben. We appreciate it. But there's other tools that are out there. 7 Rooms. I have encountered 7 Rooms so much lately. If you don't know what it is, it's a reservation system for restaurants. But I've encountered it, and I've mentioned it on this webinar before, that it really, there's other tools that are there that people are leveraging for bookings. A theme park can use a restaurant reservation system to plan someone's bookings, and if that's what you need to do, please absolutely do it. So, Ben, let's chat with you. Technology, what's the biggest technology game changer that you're seeing?
Well, from 2 sides, I guess it's been addressed partially here, but as a consumer of theme parks and a theme park fan, my pattern of behavior has had to completely change. Example, the other weekend, I wanted to pop to Universal Studios, and they were at capacity. But again, using technology, I could immediately see on Twitter that they had tweeted out to say they'd hit capacity. Disney, I would often finish work at 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon and just pop to Epcot for a walk. That has to some extent been restricted because of the fact you have to now book advanced reservations before you go, which it's a good thing. It makes sense, and certainly not to drill on Disney. What they've done commercially makes sense for them, but they've prioritised me being an annual pass holder that's been loyal to them for the 5 years I've been in the country. They've given my ticket less priority than someone that goes to Walmart and buys a one-day ticket, or they're doing 4 days for $200 at the moment. I've got a friend of mine, she's bought that, and she can make reservations for Hollywood Studios any day through December, whereas I can only literally go on a random Tuesday or a Thursday. So it's changed behaviour, I guess, from the technology side of things. I'd say from an ABS side of things, flipping it that way, we had to provide a solution so people didn't have to touch. As you mentioned earlier, being able to give a thumbs up, thumbs down gesture, that we managed to spin that out in about two months of sort of pretty fast track development with all of our team working remotely, which again, we've mentioned Teams and other chat platforms. We've never developed, our development team is 12 people in size, and they've always been typically in the same physical office. So how they've been able to develop quicker, more efficiently, and arguably more carbon neutral than ever because they're not traveling in and sitting in traffic to get to the office. It was something that was slightly nervy, but if I was to look back and sort of, someone mentioned it earlier, what advice would I give Ben as, April the 1st this year? It would be have less sleepless nights. Like, don't stress it. It will happen. Like, the world carries on. But yeah, that's sort of from both sides of what I've experienced.
Thanks, Ben. Francine, same question. And by the way, my panelists, interrupt yourselves if you want. Get on in if there's something that you want to jump in on. But Francine, what are your thoughts on technology during this pandemic?
I think I piggyback on what everybody else has said, but I think what's happened here is that we've been forced to use technology that we probably wouldn't have done anyway. And so I think for our industry, at least, it's going to force this. I think people are going to be a lot more comfortable with technology. One, they're going to see the value of the IT group within their company or the company that they work with for IT. I think they're going to value technology even more so. So the technology companies that have been slowly growing within our industry may grow very quickly because I think people will embrace that technology. But also, too, I think that as an industry, we've always had kind of a more visceral approach to our rides and attractions. Everything has been very much about that feeling and very tactile. And now I think that people are going to be a little bit more familiar and maybe less afraid of adding technology into their rides and attractions. Some of the bigger brands have already been doing it for a long time. Some of the more progressive parks have already been doing it for a long time. But I just think that your end user, your guest coming to your park is going to be more amenable to technology. And that also means that the parks themselves, the staff themselves, where the tendency has been that our younger employees can embrace technology, but maybe our older ones cannot. I think we're going to see that shift. So I think it's going to make it a lot easier for everyone to implement technology, whether it's cashless transactions, whether it's adding in some of this information where you're gathering data from your guests, gathering data from your employees, gathering data and using it kind of in an AI, artificial intelligence kind of an environment. I just think that it's just going to be so much easier. I think there's been kind of I would have to say, and no pun intended, but Zoom is kind of like a gateway drug. Once you got to Zoom and people can be familiar with Zoom, it kind of opens them up to be open to a lot of other technologies. Funny little story, I think my mom has sent me more TikTok kind of little clips than ever, and I spend more time talking to my mom on WhatsApp. I never would have had that kind of interaction with her. My relationship is much closer with her because of it. I would imagine that we're seeing the same thing, that we're able to now communicate with our guests more quickly because now they have the phone in their hands and they rely on whatever apps they're using. But that's going to give us a lot of opportunity to directly talk to the guests, where before it was, let me put up a sign in my park and let me make sure that I can advertise all those things in my website. And I have to wait for them to come by the sign or come by the website. And now it's right there in their hands. And now you get a chance to talk to them. Where I don't think we had that before. And now we've just facilitated that so much more easily. So if anything, I don't know if there's any one particular technology. This is really not a shameless plug at all, but I went to Kennedy Space Center last Thursday. I had a board meeting up in Georgia, and I drove back down, and we went to Kennedy Space Center. It was so easy. I got online on my phone, and I bought the tickets. There was a little QR code. I went in. All I had to do was zoom it out, go in and scan it, walk right in. I never had to touch anything. Nobody touched me. I did it probably in 5 minutes, and I walked right through. And it wasn't until we got through the gate that my husband, Michael, looked back, and he's always fascinated by whose system it is. Well, lo and behold, it was Gateway Ticketing. So not a shameless plug, but to go in and say, hey, good job. You're making technology easy. I think that if technologies are easy for the end user, we're just going to be facilitating that more. And people like Ben are going to like that because that means people are going to be more amenable to putting his systems in place.
Well, we appreciate the plug. Kennedy Space Center has been pretty popular the last couple of days with all the rocket launchings and NASA. And I'm actually wearing my NASA socks today. I don't think I can show you guys them very easily. I posted about them earlier today. But yeah, no, the technology's been great. And, you know, the mom, TikTok is funny because SSA, during this entire period, SSA, who's a great service provider for the nonprofit industry. They run retail gift shops. They run ticketing at many zoos and attractions. They were using TikTok to train their employees. And it's so interesting to think about these tools that are right there. I do think that our industry did a great job. Ethylene was one that I loved. I can find the link and send it to you guys, but Ethylene did a really good job of communicating via YouTube and all their social networks of what the experience was going to be like. And I think that is important for people to know, hey, this is what the experience is going to be like. Or maybe don't bring cash. You got to pre-register. To hit up a lot of the comments that you just made, Jim mentions, you know, the surprise, the technology change of being cashless. And I think that's important, knowing that people can do a quick transaction. Apple Wallet works with a good amount of distance, and you don't actually physically need to touch it. I've been training my mom just to show her, you know, not even touching the terminals. Like her credit card has got Wi-Fi. I just explained to her, you just tap it. You don't even have to you don't have to touch the devices at all. A lot of other Salesforce has been a huge help for many people as a tool. Let's see, what else do we have? The best technology, Joseph, right on, right? A mask. We're learning more and more by just simply wearing a mask is going to help us out. Linda, you know, remote access so that people can work from home. That was a big surprise. I worked with a lot of attractions that they just did not have remote access tools. It wasn't that they didn't have Zoom. It was that they couldn't even, you know, these were physical computers for a lot of them. They didn't have laptops. They didn't have mobile devices. So that was a big shift. Obviously, Peggy's right, teleconferencing, some big changes. I do want to talk about cleaning as well. There have been some great technologies in research in UV cleaning and ozone, and we're starting to see those in use at many places. So I don't want to understate the importance of electrostatic sprayers and other types of tools that are becoming much more prevalent, even at a regular, you know, family-run restaurant in my neighborhood that's using the sprayers to disinfect. It looks like we have about 15 minutes, so I'm going to jump ahead to our last question, and I really love this question. And for this one, we're just going to go around the room. We're going to start with Matt Heller and then go to Heather and Josh, and we want your answers, and then we'll close out by sharing everyone else's thoughts, which are great too. So Matt Heller, as we look ahead, many attractions have embraced new ways to do business as a result of the outbreak. What are some permanent changes for good, for the better, that you have adopted? So this could be personal, Ben, when it comes to you. It could be personal as well. It could be about your business too. But Matt, what are the ones that you've seen that are for the better that will be adopted and will be permanent?
Well, I think it goes back to some of the discussion before about how important family is and how important people are. And I've seen a lot of organizations really putting a lot of emphasis on their employee engagement and mental health with their employees. And so that's something that I absolutely hope will continue. I may have shared this on one of the other webinars that we did together, but there's an organization, one of the large theme park chains, where they were saying that even from their corporate headquarters, that the mental health and the well-being of their team members was being more emphasized than profits. And of course, we know profits are important for a business, but I really hope that as we go into 2021 and beyond, that mentality stays, because we all know the link between, engaged employees and profits and revenue. So if we can continue to maximize that, I think we're on the right track. So that's the big thing that I hope really continues.
Thank you, Matt. Matt, I just want to say your positive outlook is really great too, and I'm sure this is an open invitation for most folks, but you've never shied away from this. You're the type of person that when you do need that encouragement, if your attraction needs that little bump and that fist bump, whether virtually in person, that people can reach out to you. So I want to make sure that people know that everyone is a great resource, but Matt, you've really done a great job of reaching out to folks and sharing that information. So I just want to give you a little pat on the back there.
I appreciate it, Randy.
No, and you've been really great for me. I kind of talking about like looking ahead and the positive nature. I really think one of my big takeaways is that just the connectivity of people during this time period. I think that people are going to understand and embrace and listen to the teams and be a resource and be available. And I think that's something for the better that's going to happen. It's not maybe a new way of doing business. It's an open way. This morning when the Pamela Landsworth was talking, she's the CEO of Give Kids the World. At the very end, just something you said made me think of it, Matt. She gave her personal email address during that session, which was very profound that someone would do that. And I emailed her right away, and she emailed me back right away. And I think that's important. I think that in a digital world, having the personal, the permanent change that I'm hopeful for is that we are going to have personal relationships in a digital world, even if we're separated and we're not together in the same space. So, Joshua, what do you think? As we look ahead, what do you think is going to be one of the permanent changes for the better?
Well, first I'll say this is a tough act to follow from that. So there, it was a great response, and Randy enjoyed the commentary. And my session followed Pam's this morning. That was a tough act to follow too. So I will say that the permanent changes will be a result of the change of thinking that was brought on from our COVID-related changes. And really allowing your innovation to be abstract and unrestricted, and then dial back as needed to fit the mold or fit your infrastructure. So for example, if we talk about virtual queuing, maybe some people think of that as a permanent change. Maybe it is for some attractions, maybe not so much for others. But if we were to say, okay, well, where does our thought process go with virtual queuing? Now we need a place to put all of our guests. So maybe, you mentioned cabanas earlier. Maybe now dry parks are incorporating something that is similar to a cabana where guests are able to upgrade. There's a new revenue stream there. Maybe it's their home base for the day. Maybe they can, lock some belongings in it. Well, if we're tying that in with maybe, mobile food and beverage, maybe they can do that from their cabana. Maybe they can have a personal private concierge that actually is able to serve them and, check up on them throughout the course of their visit, throughout the course of their day. And being able to kind of see, how far along, you could take that. Maybe it's from their mobile phone. Maybe there's a tablet that's in there. From that tablet, maybe I can upgrade my ticket to an annual pass. Maybe I can post on social media from there too. So that way of thinking that's been brought on from the changes that maybe some places were thinking about certain elements to be able to improve and be able to update their guest experience. Now I think we really have that ability, and I would say we have that permission to think beyond what does our experience look like today? Where can we take it? How far can we, that conversation or that dialogue about how far can we push the envelope? Let's see, what is the 5-star, 6-star, 7-star guest experience? I listened to a podcast once with the founders of Airbnb, and they were like, we ended up defining what the 11-star experience would be. It's completely unrealistic. It's you fly first class, you land, you're picked up in a limo by a celebrity. It's like things that can't actually happen. But then now saying, okay, well, maybe we can actually get 1% there, 2% there, and be able to get a little bit closer to this continuous improvement and enhancement of the experience and then the overall organization. If you now have a premium upgrade of cabanas or something like that, well, now maybe you can increase your ticket price while you're decreasing your capacity, get closer to pre-pandemic revenue levels at lower capacity. Maybe some attractions are able to do something like that, maybe not so much others. But I think it's the freedom and the unrestricted thought process and creativity that is going to be a permanent change from 2020.
Yeah, I'm going to bring in some comments. I was on a call with Bernie Campbell earlier from Worley, and he had said some of the things that we thought were 3 years down the line are happening in 6 months. Mm-hmm. We're moving much faster, and you can see Ben's talking about, it's just forced people to change. We've embraced new sales channels, increasingly moved ticket sales to our web store. Seeing shifts from 5 and 10% online to 95% is huge. Jim, so completely right on with almost everything you were saying, Josh. Seeing reduced queues, seeing the technology, touchless mobile ordering, and product delivery. This is obtainable. It's right here. It just is going to be accelerated. Some places we're not ready to do it yet. The necessity, we're going to see that draw happen even faster. I mean, who would have thought that I could walk up to a movie theater freestyle Coca-Cola machine and activate it with my phone? If you guys haven't seen it, it's a QR code. I've talked about it before. It's the coolest thing on the planet. I go up and I'm controlling a soda machine on my device. I love it.
That's awesome.
So, yeah. Heather, let's talk to you for a little bit here. What as we look ahead, what are your changes for the better that you think that are going to stick around?
Well, I think it's been a defining time, right? It's been defining for us as leaders, and also watching how our leadership teams handle pivoting and the unknown, and being scared for themselves, for their families. And in that defining time, one word really comes to mind, which is empathy. Being at a zoo or an aquarium, we talk about empathy a lot, empathy for animals, but for me, it's been so much about the people this year. And that means being flexible with policies, looking at our official telecommuting guidelines and eligibility before COVID. And how does that work when I have 175 people telecommuting all of a sudden, and being empathetic to their situation, and also to the guests who are coming and the burden that they have, that they're carrying with them, and everything that we can offer as an escape. So I think just continuing that empathy is really what sticks with me. The other thing, of course, we've done some cool things with programs that we've changed, like being able to buy out an entire penguin encounter, which we had never done before, because we thought, well, no, we should max it out at 12 all the time. Well, wait a minute. Actually, for the same amount, 2 people will buy it and have that time just to themselves. The market will bear it, and we didn't know that until now. And then also using social media to test messaging when we didn't have people in the building to talk to. We actually found with our messaging that our safety first message did worse than our we're ready for you, welcome back, come enjoy, have fun. That actually did a lot better, even though we had our safety messaging available for those who wanted it. So those are some of the things. I think we're the better for it, but we've been through it, that's for sure.
Thank you for sharing that information. Donna, I'll jump to you. Another from one operator to another. What are your thoughts on this question?
Not sure I can expand much on what the others have said, but I think I'll circle back to the first question, and it really is kind of the inspiration of how compassionate and kind people can be when they're put into a tough in a shared situation that's tough. we were all on the same playing field. I mean, we all had the same fears. We all didn't know whether we were going to have a job tomorrow or if one of our family was going to be ill. And it's just how people have come together to work through these problems. And so I hope from an attraction standpoint that continues into the future. From a business standpoint, I think what Greg said and others have said is really about our staff and paying attention to how they're holding up through all of these changes. I know one of the things that I'm sure we'll continue to do is this hybrid work environment that we're in right now. We have a good mix of people that are splitting their time between work and home, some that are primarily at home, like most of the management staff, and then you have your frontline workers that are there every day. And so I think it'll be interesting to see where our business goes to from an operating standpoint, from the care and feeding of our staff to the care and feeding of our visitors on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, I put a few other, Matt, from, his comments about hybrid events, the need to operate leaner and smarter. Cindy, I'll put that one back up. I really think it's really interesting to hear all these different types of perspectives and changes. Francine, I'll go to you and to Ben in a moment. But I just want to share Wanda's thoughts, using gift cards, stored value. I think that these things are going to be institutional changes that if you see it happening at McDonald's, if you see it happening at your regular restaurant, you're going to start seeing them. My kid it's happened a few times to my total shock that, my kid's upstairs going to school and a doorbell rings. I look outside and there's food on the porch, and I had no idea because I was sitting here at work. She's upstairs door dashing while in the middle of a class getting the food delivered with my credit card. But, these are the types of things I think in the attraction industry we're going to need to make sure that concept is available. Sherry, so many changes with COVID. There is the idea that many of these are going to be permanent, the time ticketing, the contact tracing elements. I think it's definitely a change. Sometimes, I was saying earlier, something popped up on my screen there. I talked a little bit earlier about getting rid of the waste. We had a company meeting today, and we were talking a little bit about, being efficient and, focusing on efficiencies. And sometimes when you have procedures in place that are not efficient, maybe you just don't have the staff around, you're going to start seeing some changes there as well. More open space. I think this has been awesome. I love going to local restaurants and cafes that have put tables out into the streets. I think we're just going to need to expand. You're going to see much more open space, and I think that as a consumer, I love that. More focus on local residential markets. I definitely think that's an obvious change. Bringing locals in. And, Ben, going back to your story about being a pass holder, who knows what that means for pass holder programs, right? Like local pass holder programs are probably maybe going to change a little bit as we start focusing less on, visitor and international tourists. Of course, our industry depends on them, but in certain areas, you're going to just, with things being so, they're moving and in flux, you might see a change in those programs as a whole. Francine, do you want to contribute? Do you have any thoughts on some of the great changes that are for the better?
Yeah, I think that, I think that you're going to see parks, they're going to be focusing more on that really immersive, high-quality experience because their capacity is going to be limited. I think people are still going to be afraid of being too close to each other. So really, parks are going to have to reinvent how they're delivering on that. They need the higher per cap in order for the financial model to work. A lot of these parks were designed around volume. Well, now if the volume is not there, they have to shift to driving higher per caps. And how do you get there? You get there through some personalization. And I think it was Greg that said it earlier. When we launched Vantage was this wristband that was going to be able to interface with a lot of things. but was also going to give you a lot of insight about your customer so that you could personalize your experience for them. That's going to help you to get to that higher per cap. And so I do get very concerned about the parks that were designed for volume. How are they going to shift into this more higher experience that's going to drive people to come, that they can charge a little bit more, that they can maybe get a better length of stay or maybe another couple of meals. All of that is going to really determine kind of their future. So I think that's going to stay. I love the idea that maybe the cafe lifestyle is going to stay, but that means that the Sun Belt will do really well for a good portion of the year. What are we going to do about the northern parts of the hemispheres? So if you're I think that we're going to have to be looking at how do we maximize the assets that we have, and how do we make those last a little bit longer. With homeschooled kids, I think you're going to see a whole group of kids that are not ever going to go back to regular in-person schools, or they're going to be going to alternative schools. And if they're going to go to alternative schools, they're going to want to go to parks at their leisure and not necessarily. So you might see that these parks that have always been built around the school calendar, that might shift a bit, and you might have to do smaller events that might garner attendance from that group of people that are staying home. So lots of different things. Who knows what the world is going to be like, but I think that for us, if there's ever an industry that knows how to adapt, it's ours. So I think that through some innovation, employing some technologies, shifting our kind of mindset, I think we'll be okay.
Very well said. The immersive experiences, I can't wait. Right. I think that the technology, I mean, all you've had to do is, visit, Star Wars Galaxy's Edge to see some of those things that just light up your heart. I mean, I was super excited for some of those experiences, and I do agree that we're going to see an uptick in those qualities. Ben, I'm going to round it up with you, and then I'm going to share a couple other slides with some other great comments, and then we'll...
I feel like Jerry Springer with the final thought of the day, but for me, it really follows on what both Matt and Donna touched on, is around staff wellness.
Yeah.
We're a relatively small company. We've got 20 employees. And so when COVID kicked in, we had obviously a fairly significant impact on our revenue, the company. And it was just really communicating out. And we used to historically have quarterly update meetings with the team, and we wouldn't dive into too many details. And, I think if we'd asked them at the time, how do you feel about job security? Pre-COVID, they would all been absolutely fine. As soon as COVID kicked in, we resorted to actually having weekly meetings because everyone was then working from home. We ended up having to actually furlough a fair few members of staff under the UK furlough scheme. But throughout that, all of our staff still retained their full income, with the government backing partly, but also us topping it up. And it was something that's, I guess, going to live on beyond this COVID nastiness, of just being more connected and being more aware of people's circumstances. And I think everyone on this call here would live, I guess everyone lives different lifestyles. They don't necessarily live paycheck to paycheck, whereas our other members of staff do, and they've got other responsibilities. And so I guess getting across staff wellness within our own company, and I don't know if you remember, Randy, a few months back, both yourself and Josh and Matt were big advocates of our free staff wellness survey that we pushed out to a number of organisations. We even pushed it out to a hospital trust in the UK, to nurses that were actually dealing with COVID cases and literally having to play God of deciding who gets the ventilator and things like that. So it's been pretty harrowing, but we always look for the light at the end of the tunnel. And our team have never been more connected. We've actually grown our staff through COVID, because a few amazing employees got made redundant from other companies. So we took the opportunity, and we've cut our expenses as much as we can. And it's just be an open ear, and don't think just because you're going to sleep quite happily, not worrying about things, that other members of your team have other stresses, both mental and potentially physical, and just to be aware of. Not to be all doom and gloom, but just be aware.
No, I mean, and Matt Heller had said something, a couple, we had met and talked, I think it was on a webinar, and he said, we're discussing about the personalization, and I kind of said it at the beginning of this topic, and it's that, in the digital world, your friends are just a phone call or a Zoom or a FaceTime away or a TikTok away. and I think, Matt, you had said, let's just be good humans. Reach out the phone to that friend that's in need. We have a lot of friends that maybe as we approach 2021, they're looking for a new gig. And that's going to maybe be something that is consistent. So understanding employee health, understanding your friend health is really important, so we don't get caught up in all this other noise. Let's just be good friends to each other during this time period. I think that's something that's really resonates with me. And when you do have a chance to meet together, in a one-on-one, that's a special opportunity. Peggy, I'm going to end with Peggy's line here. Peggy says, at Kenosha Public, we have much fewer face-to-face meetings, but they're more productive, right? We just have to take advantage of that time when we are together and be hopeful for the future. So, man, this has been a great journey. We obviously went over. It's par for the course, so I really apologize for going a little late. Heather, Francine, Matt, Josh, Donna, Ben, Greg, Bill, I'll say them all again, Matt, Josh, Elle, you guys, thank you so much for joining us today. Everybody, you guys had some great lines. All these ones that are on the screen, I'm going to post them in their entirety so everybody can see everybody's comments, because we had such really great information. There's a poll that should be up on your screen right now, and the reason why we did that is we are going to be doing these webinars in 2021. They might change. We're still thinking about how to do them best, but if you want to participate, please just register here. We've got this super cool demo that planned on December 9th. This is another kind of outreach kind of program that we put together. This is a demo of our product, but also kind of saying, how can you use technology to plan for 2021? So, like, how can you use tools to analyze your current year? How can you plan and schedule events for next year, and even fluctuate and be ready to pivot, the word that Heather said. So to stay on top of all these things, just kind of click on that QR code. It should take you to some amazing place. I don't have any idea where that QR takes us, but click on that, and it'll probably take us to our community. In closing, please fill out that poll that should be on your screen. We want to do these webinars next year, but we're probably going to shorten them. If you want to participate in a webinar, we'd love to have you. If there's a topic or something that you want us to cover, let us know. We love doing these webinars because it's a good way for us all to get together as a community. So on behalf of everybody, Matthew had to say goodbye a little early. On behalf of Gateway Ticketing and Greg and everybody here and Bill, thank you guys so much for being with us. It's been a real amazing journey. We're going to take a 5, 6, 7, or 8 week off as we celebrate the holidays with our families. But I appreciate all of you guys very much. And thank you guys for being here today with us. So I appreciate you.
And hey,
thanks to you as well for organising, Randy. I know it doesn't just happen overnight. These things take planning, and it's quite scary if you work out that you've done 24 sessions and they're about 2 and a bit hours each. Yeah, that's quite a lot of time.
Yeah, and on behalf of everyone on the call and all the panelists, Randy, we want to thank you too, and Matthew, who's not here, but you guys really killed it this year. So thank you so much. And Phil D'Angelo for helping out as well. Phil's our ever-present host in the background.
Hi, Randy and Gateway.
And Francine, I'm so happy to have you be able to join us too. I was hoping that you'd make it before the end of the year, so I appreciate you very much.
Yeah, that was great. Thanks.
Hey, so maybe you'll be on the lookout for a networking event. If anybody wants to get together and have a drink or two, we'll all get together and play some games and just enjoy our company. So you might see that hitting your email. Thank you guys, Heather and everyone. Bye, Donna. You're the best. Bye, guys. Bye. Have a good day, everyone. See you, Josh.
Take care, everyone. Cheers.
All right. Thanks so much.
Have a great holiday season.
You too.